Portable gaming for most of the 1980s was quite poor. While there are many that fondly remember the devices available at the time, I genuinely couldn't stand them. The technology was so limited, often little more than repeating the same 5 seconds of gameplay without deviation. To make matters worse, the music was just random beeps, completely destroying any possible immersion. So when 1989's Game Boy was launched by Nintendo, it really shook things up for me. For the very first time, I had a gaming experience in the palm of my hands that reflected what I could get on a full-fledged console. And it was glorious. I had access to platformers, sports, and adventure games that were every bit as good as similar offerings at home. And the best part was, most of my favorite series were available as well. Soon after the launch of the Game Boy, Konami released Castlevania The Adventure, an exclusive entry into what had become one of my favorite franchises ever. This marked the start of 3 mainline portable games for the device, and set the stage for future releases on its successors. In this episode, we will be looking at the Castlevania games available for the original Game Boy, as well as a spin-off starring the son of everyone's favorite bloodsucker. I hope you guys enjoy Castlevania and the Nintendo Game Boy. The first game available was Castlevania The Adventure, a simple but fun entry that sees our hero Christopher Belmont hunting Dracula 100 years before the original Castlevania. This one took a number of liberties with the gameplay we had been so used to. There are no sub-weapons to help you in battle, and the whip upgrades actually regress if you take damage. The stage layouts are super simple and rely heavily on ropes to climb to the next area. While these changes are certainly felt during gameplay, it still very much feels like Castlevania. After traversing a stage, you have to fight a big bad guy to proceed, and of course the entire experience is rather difficult. This is mostly because the pace of the gameplay feels slower, almost as if you're playing it underwater or something. It does take a while to get used to, even more so if you are used to the faster Metroidvanias that were released a while later. Where this game does excel is the wonderful soundtrack, however. While the Game Boy was rather limited with its puke green LCD screen, the sound chip was something special. Konami took advantage of it too, and these tunes are as nostalgic as any in the series. There's not a bad one in the bunch, and it elevates this experience well above the base visuals and gameplay. For those of you looking to play this today, I highly recommend you chase down the European release, Konami Game Boy Collection Volume 1. This was a special Game Boy Color release with enhanced visuals, bringing it much closer to the NES editions. Konami would also remake this entirely in 2009 for the Nintendo Wii. Called Castlevania The Adventure Rebirth, it was a digital WiiWare title that has since been lost to the ravages of time. It's quite the fun game, and I really hope Konami reissues it at some point in the future. For the original, you can get it easily on modern platforms via the Castlevania Anniversary Collection. Two years later, in 1991, the Game Boy received Castlevania II Belmonts Revenge, a direct sequel to the previous entry. Here we have Christopher's son being kidnapped by Dracula and used to regain his lost power. Once again, you must start your journey to fell this evil bastard and make things right. While I had my fun with Castlevania The Adventure, there is no other way to say it, the sequel here is a better game start to finish. First, you get your choice of starting area in the form of 4 castles that need to be destroyed. This adds a great variety to the gameplay because you choose your own journey every single time. There's a password system to resume your adventure, and Konami also saw fit to bring this closer in line with the console releases by bringing back sub-weapons like the Holy Water and the Axe. The stage design goes well beyond what we had seen in the previous entry as well. Instead of the simple jumps and platforms we had seen before, here you get breakable blocks, moving spikes, and a whole assortment of things in the environment to slow you down or kill you. Best part is, the gameplay feels much more responsive, with that underwater feeling almost completely gone. Back was yet another killer soundtrack as well, icing on the cake of improvements, and another one that is as memorable as they come. It was by this point that I had come to the conclusion that the Game Boy sound chip was pure gold, and I had so many favorites for the platform. When you talk about Castlevania music, you simply cannot omit the portable offerings here. Also, for you Castlevania superfans, check out the Japanese version of this. Instead of the axe sub-weapon, you get a cross, which can change up the gameplay possibilities quite a bit. For modern access, it's available on the Castlevania Anniversary Collection for contemporary platforms. Many years would pass before the Game Boy received another game in the classic Konami franchise, but it did eventually come in the form of 1997's Castlevania Legends. This is the red-headed stepchild of the series if there ever was one. The story focuses on Sonia Belmont, the very first vampire hunter of her family and the source of the original conflict with Count Dracula. Many of you may recall Sonia as being the lead character in the ill-fated Dreamcast game Castlevania Resurrection as well. Konami chose to simplify things a bit more in this release, returning to the linear design of the first and dropping the more complicated stage layouts from the second. You do gain soul weapons at the end of each stage that differ quite a bit from the sub-weapons seen in the previous games, and there is a burning mode that powers up our hero once per stage. While simpler and definitely not as good as the previous game, I like this one quite a bit. It stays true to the Castlevania style gameplay, and it is easy to pick up and play. But I seem to have been in the minority because Legends here has received little love in the gaming media of the time. Magazines blasted it as one of the worst Castlevania titles ever, and even the more modern reviews rarely pay it much favor. But the most damning rebuke came from series veteran Koji Igarashi himself, declaring that the story is non-canon and stricken from the timeline entirely. He called it an embarrassment and lamented the fact that the development team lacked a proper vision for the game. Despite its dubious position in the Castlevania hierarchy, its limited release has made it a heck of a collector's piece for Game Boy enthusiasts. A complete in-box mint product can command over $500. Even the instruction manual alone can go for nearly $100. Unfortunately, this was not included in the Castlevania Anniversary Collection, so if you want to play it, I highly advise emulation or a device like the EverDrive. In 1993, Konami released Kid Dracula for the Game Boy, a comical spin-off story featuring the title character as he tries to get control of his kingdom and minions back from the evil Garamol. This is a continuation of the story that started on the Famicom in Japan. The style and presentation are quite different from the previous games shown here, and feature a more cutesy aesthetic with large sprites and gameplay that is heavily based on projectile mechanics. Kid Dracula also has secondary powers like bat transformations to help him navigate the stages. While it's nothing like a Castlevania title, it's still a fun time and has some excellent graphics and sound. Looking at the old monochrome visuals in these games, it might be difficult for you to care about them in 2021. Portable games have improved exponentially since their release, and there are much better looking portable Castlevanias available. But for what they lack in visual pizzazz, they make up for in challenge, pick up and play appeal, and a selection of music that did the hardware proud. They gave me one of my favorite series of all time in the palm of my hands, and I'll never ever forget that. The feel-good nostalgia I get when I fire these up cannot be easily dismissed, making them all still worth playing from time to time. When portable gaming was in its infancy, I had no interest in playing any of it. The Game Boy changed all that for me, and once machines like the Lynx and Game Gear showed up, I was all in. I would come to greatly admire Nintendo's dedication to the portable market, and the games that would grace those platforms. Konami kept pumping out incredible games for the Game Boy Advance and DS, both of which had some great Castlevanias all their own. Perhaps we'll take a look at those in the future. I'm Sega Lord X. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you next time.